Hi, folks. Welcome to another daily devotional. We're getting two for the price of one, as it seems, because having painted a little portrait of Timothy, and in that portrait giving us something of an insight into Timothy's character, Paul goes on in verse 25 to begin to paint the portrait of another servant of God, this time a member of the church at Philippi, a man by the name of Epaphroditus. This is what he says in verse 25. I think it necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker, and fellow soldier, who is your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. Paul actually uses 5 different terms here to describe Epaphroditus. 3 of those terms have to do with Epaphroditus' relationship with Paul, and the other 2 have to deal with Epaphroditus' relationship to the Philippians. Let's think today about the terms Paul uses to describe Epaphroditus' relationship to the church in Philippi. He says he is your messenger. Now, the word that's actually used here is actually the word apostle. And the reason for that is that the word apostle literally means someone sent out, a sent one. It was the official term that was given to those men whom Jesus chose and appointed and sent out to be his official representatives and the leaders of the New Testament church. And Paul, of course, himself was one of the apostles, as was Peter and John and so on. But Paul is not here using this term to identify Epaphroditus as one of those official apostles of Jesus in that sense. He wasn't one who had the same ecclesiastical status and authority as Paul or Peter or James. The reason Paul uses the word apostle here is because he's underscoring the fact that this man has been specifically and personally chosen, called, and appointed by his home church, the church in Philippi, to undertake a very specific task for them. He was their chosen representative. The other term that Paul uses to describe Epaphroditus' relationship to the church in Philippi explains to us the nature of the work that he was being asked to undertake. The Apostle Paul says, Epaphroditus, your messenger, your apostle, whom you sent to minister to my needs. That little word there, minister, is a Greek word that means to render service to someone. The Old Testament equivalent in the Hebrew is a word that was used most often to designate the work of the priests. And the priest was someone who, on behalf of God's people, offered gifts and sacrifices to God. They ministered before the Lord. So Paul sees Epaphroditus as the official representative of the church in Philippi, who's been chosen and appointed and sent out by them to bring their gifts to Paul, to present what they were offering to the one to whom it was to be offered. And you have to remember the background here to see what's going on. Paul is in prison. The church in Philippi have heard about his situation. They have a deep love for Paul, genuine interest in his welfare. And when news gets back that he's in prison, they're wanting to get in touch with him to see how he's doing and also to send a gift to him to help him in his present circumstances. And so they decide, who will we send? And their thoughts turn to Epaphroditus. It's one thing to decide in principle to send someone. It's another thing to actually get someone who is A, suitable to do it, and B, willing to undertake the responsibility. Epaphroditus was willing to do both. Now, the fact that he was chosen by the church for this task tells us something about this man. It tells us something about his spiritual character. First of all, it shows us that he was certainly a man that the church had complete confidence and trust in. They were sending him with a gift, more than likely a financial gift. And if that's the case, then they were entrusting a substantial sum, no doubt, of money to him. But they knew that they could completely trust Epaphroditus to take whatever they had given him and to bring it to Paul. In chapter 4, verse 18, Paul says, I'm amply supplied now that I have received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. They are a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God. So the gifts must have been considerable, and the church in Philippi knew that they could completely trust Epaphroditus to take these gifts to Paul. The other thing is the fact that he agreed to do the job and to go to Rome shows us that, like Timothy, whom we've just been considering, this man, Epaphroditus, was also other people centered. He was selfless in his attitude, prepared to make personal sacrifices in order to serve the church. Now, the church at Philippi was greatly blessed in having a man like Epaphroditus as one of its members, a trustworthy, reliable individual in whom the congregation had complete confidence, a man who, when he was asked to undertake a particular task for the congregation, was willing to do so, even though it would involve self-sacrifice on his part. Again, as with Timothy, this is the sort of Christian that you and I should be. One in whom our fellow believers have complete confidence. If they have a particular task that needs doing, our name should certainly very much come to their minds. So let's learn from Epaphroditus, and God willing, tomorrow we learn from how Paul describes him, not just in relation to his relationship with Philippi, but tomorrow with regards to his relationship with Paul. Have a great day.